Okay, we're doing section 5.3.3, which is laws of cosines. I actually made this video earlier, you guys, with my class, and it got deleted, so I am remaking this video now, and it's not during a geometry class. Your guys' homework tonight is 100, 101, 104, and 105. Make sure you guys are getting these done and submitted. If you're watching this video, that's awesome because yesterday only 3 people watched it of all of our quarantine kids. So thank you for watching this. Okay, here's your warm-up for today, you guys. This is what you would have had in class. So go ahead and write this triangle down. You'll definitely want to have this in your notebook. I sent your guys' notebooks home yesterday. If you haven't come to pick up your stuff yet, you probably want to pick that up because I put your book, your textbook, as well as your notebook in the office for you. And if your calculator was in the classroom, I also put that with all of your stuff. Also, again, you guys, you can sign up for our geometry ebook by going to sso.cpm.org. Sign in with Google. And then our class code is V4LJE. So you can also get the ebook on there. That also has homework help, which will probably be a good tool for you guys while you're doing this stuff at home. So go ahead and pause this video. Do this warm-up on your own, and then we'll go through it together. This is using law of sines, which is what you guys did yesterday. Okay, so let's go through this. You guys should have noticed that this angle C goes with this side C across from it, and we're trying to find side C. And then you should have noticed that angle B is 35 degrees, and we have a 7 with that. So you want to have something that has all of the variables filled in. So B and side B are both given. So we're going to do the sine of B, which is 35 degrees, over the side that goes with it, which is 7, equals the sine of C, which is 105 degrees, over side C, which is the one we don't know. This is a little tiny bit different from what you guys did yesterday, but it's actually easier than what you did yesterday. So this is the same process. You have to multiply this way, divide by this one, and you'll get C this time instead. So you should have 7 times the sine of 105 divided by the sine of 35. And I'm also going to type this in my calculator, so if you guys didn't get that, type it in as well. So 7 times the sine of 105 divided by the sine of 35. And this equals C, right? You guys, this is the only one left, so it equals C. We don't have to solve for anything left after this, so it's 11.8 approximately is C. You're done. Remember how you had to do the inverse yesterday? That's because it would be like equal to the sine of C or something like that. It's not like that this time, so you just solved for C. You solved for side length, so this side length is 11.8. If we had units on this, like centimeters or whatever, you would put that on there as well. Okay, so today we're doing the law of cosines instead of the law of sines. So if you have your note cards at home, go ahead and write this down. If not, just write it in your notebook. So this is the law of cosines. And this should go on one side of your note card. On the other side, I want you guys to write C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of C. That looks like it's really complicated, but it's really not. So here's your triangle that would go with that. And remember, the sides across from the angles are labeled as the same letter, just lowercase. So this is what that really means. It means that you're going to solve for a side C. The angle across from it should be a measurement that you already have, and you should also have the measures of the two sides next to it. So what that means is you're going to write c squared because you don't have that. That's what you're trying to solve for. Then you're going to plug in your two other sides that you're given for a and b everywhere that you have a and b. Then for c, you plug in the angle that you're given. It's really a lot easier than it looks. This actually, this morning the kids were like, this is way easier than law of sines, and it probably is. You can use this to solve for an angle, but we're not really going to use it that way in this class yet. You guys, if you move on to trig, you'll use it that way. So make sure you have this written down. Okay, this is the first one we're going to do, and I'm going to write down our law of cosines for us again. So it's c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab times the cosine of c. So what this means is we're trying to solve for side c, which is actually this side we're going to solve for. It's always the side across from the angle you're given that we're going to solve for. So this is going to be c. So we're going to say c squared equals the first side, which is 9 squared, plus the second side, which is not b squared, it's 10 squared, minus 2 times the first side times the second side, times the cosine of the angle we're given. And now it's just a calculator problem. So go ahead and type that in your calculator. Okay, when you type that in, you can just type that all in at once in your calculator. You should have gotten approximately 8,208.83. And this is still c squared on this side. So to get rid of that squared, we have to do the square root. And we get c equals, well, not equals, is approximately 90. Whoops, you guys, I actually typed this in without a plus sign. You should have gotten, so if you question that, that was good. You should have gotten 289.33 approximately. Then we need to do the square root of that. I just forgot my plus sign when I typed it in my calculator. So the squares go away and the square roots, you get c is approximately 17. And then our units are meters. So when you guys do this, you should go back and fill that in on your triangle. So 17 meters. That's actually really important because we're going to get to the point where we have to fill in every angle and every side on this. And if you didn't fill those in, it's going to be pretty tough, actually. So when you get an answer, go back and fill it in on there. If you need to pause this and copy this down and go through it again before we do the next one, go ahead and do that. Okay, here's our first one, or our next one. The first thing you guys have to look for on these is that you're given side, angle, side. That's really important that you have side, angle, side when you're using this equation. If you look at this, we have side, angle, side, right? So I'm going to write the law of cosines down for you guys again. So it's c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2 times a times b times the cosine of c. So remember, this just means we're solving for this side. It's not actually c if you were to label it the right way, but we're solving for that side. Technically, you guys, we would label this one A, right? We would label this one B, and we would label this one C, because it's the side that's across from the angle that corresponds with it. If we were going to do it that way, you guys, I'm going to rewrite this equation for you. We're going to find A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2 times B times C times the cosine of A. That's the same thing. So there's technically 3 equations for the law of cosines, you guys, but you just have to pay attention to what it's asking you for and what those things in that equation mean. So that C is just asking you which side do you want to know, and do you have the angle across from it and the two sides attached to that angle? That's all it is. So we're going to write a squared equals one of the sides we're given, which is 29 squared, plus the other side we're given, which is 25, minus 2 times the first side times the second side, I'm running out of room, guys, times the cosine of the angle we're given, which is 130 degrees. Go ahead and type that in your calculator. Okay, if you need a pause to type that in your calculator, type it in, because I paused as well. So you should have gotten a squared is approximately 2,398.04. When you guys type this in, you have an answer button. So on the second part, we're going to do the square root of both sides. Type in the square root and then click second and your negative button, and your negative button says answer above it. So it's going to give you all of those decimals. It doesn't really matter how many you write down because your calculator is going to keep all of them for you. So you should get approximately 49 if you were to round to the nearest tenth, and that's yards. So this is 49 yards. Make sure you fill it in on your triangle. Okay, here's the next one. Check and see that we have side angle side, and we do. We are going to solve for this side over here. It's always the side that's across from the angle that you're solving for. So we are going to say that a squared equals the first side squared plus the second side squared minus 2 times the first side times the second side times the cosine of your angle across from the side you're trying to find. Go ahead and pause and type that in your calculator. Okay, you should have gotten a squared is approximately 19.387. It doesn't really matter how many decimals you write down, because you have to just click answer to put it in your square root anyways. So take the square root of both sides, click the second button to type in your square root, then the second button, and it'll put your answer in there, and click enter, and you should get that it's approximately 19.4 inches. And go ahead and fill that in on your triangle as 19.4 inches. Okay, for this one, you guys, I am going to fill in the side you want, which is C, and I'm going to write down your equation, which is C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of C. I want you to pause this video and I want you to try this on your own first. I think you guys can get this on your own. The kids this morning had a pretty easy time with this. If you're not, make sure you email me and we can schedule a Zoom and you can get some extra help. It's pretty important that you guys get this stuff because you're not going to learn it in the classroom and you're going to be expected to know it when you get back. So if you need extra help, it's important that you ask for extra help. Email me and we can schedule a Zoom or whatever we need to do so that you understand this. So go ahead and pause, try this on your own. Okay. So I'm going to go through the answer with you guys, so check your work. So you should, this one actually worked out with this equation. It's the exact same thing. So this was actually side A, and this was side B. So you should have had C squared, the side C squared, plus A squared, which is this side, so 27 squared, plus B squared, which is this side, so 20 squared, minus 2 times A, which is 27, times B, which is 20, times the cosine, and remember the cosine is of an angle, so it's angle C, which is 129 degrees. It's always the angle across from the side you're trying to find. Okay, when you plug that in your calculator, you should get C squared is approximately 1,808.66. Remember, you don't have to write down all of those decimals because you're going to click answer anyways, and your calculator is going to put all of those decimals in for you. So now we just need to square root this to get C by itself. So C is approximately, so click second and do the square root, second and the negative sign, which does answer. And you should get 42.5 kilometers. 42.5 kilometers. Okay, we're going to switch to another one that I'm going to have you guys do by yourself. Then we're going to kind of switch gears and we're going to do law of cosines and law of sines to solve for the whole triangle. Okay, this is your next example. I'm going to label this as C and A and B, which should help you guys out a little bit. I'm also going to write the law of cosines down for you. So C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of C. Go ahead and pause this and try it on your own. Okay, so you guys should have done C squared equals A squared, which is 12. So 12 squared plus B squared, which is 25 squared. Minus 2 times A, which is 12, times B, which is 25, times the cosine of C, which is 122. Sorry, I'm writing a little small because I ran out of room. Go ahead and pause and type that in your calculator if that's not what you had before. Okay, you should have gotten C squared is approximately 1,086.95. Doesn't really matter how many decimals you write down. This is just to show your work. Square root both sides. C is approximately. Remember, type in the second and the square root, second, and then answer, and you should get 32.9. I'm actually going to round that, you guys, because 32.9 would round up to 33. So it's 33 yards. Now make sure you fill this in. We are going to now, this was law of cosines, right? So that was law of cosines. We are now going to solve the rest of this triangle, but we're going to use law of sines to do it. So you have to use the stuff that you're given completely with law of sines, right? So this is law of sines. And what we are given is we have angle C and side C, right? So that's kind of our controlled one that we have everything for. So we are going to do the sine of 122 degrees over 33. And we are going to do that to solve for both angles. So I'm going to write it twice. If you need to pause that to write it down, go ahead. Now I want to solve for angle A first. So I'm going to do the sine of A. We don't know that one. The side across from it is 12, so it goes over 12. Now remember, we have to multiply diagonally and then divide. So we're going to do the sine of 122 times 12 over 33. And then it equals the other one, which is the sine of A. So go ahead and type that in your calculator. You have 12 times the sine of 122, and then divide that by 33. and we get approximately 0.308. It doesn't really matter if it's exact because you should use the answer button again. Now we need to take the sine inverse of both of these things. I'm going to actually scoot this over, you guys, so I can write the whole thing. So we're going to do the sine inverse of the sine of A. We're going to do the sine inverse of 0.308. Sine and sine inverse are opposites, so they go away. So we get the sine inverse of 0.308 equals, not really equals, but is approximately A. So go ahead and type that in your calculator. Type the second button in, and then the sine inverse. Then the second button and answer, because you want all of those decimal places on there. And you should get A is approximately 17.96, which would actually be 18 degrees. Okay, let's solve for the other one now. We have the sine of 122 over 33, and we need equals the sine of B over 25, because we're going to need to solve for angle B. I also forgot to fill this in, you guys. This is 18 degrees. Sine of B is over 25. Multiply diagonally, divide by this one, so 25 times the sine of 122 over 33 equals the sine of B. See you guys.
Is that for like geometry?
Okay, type that into your calculator, so 25 times the sine of 122 divided by 33, and you should get the sine of B is approximately 0.6424. I'm not going to show my work, but you guys know you need to do the sine inverse, so do the sine inverse of that. Make sure you do second answer so you get all of your decimal places. And you should get that it's 39.97, so we're going to say that B is approximately 40 degrees. Those are our two answers. So I'm going to label this as 40 degrees. So that's how you can solve for all of the sides and all of the angles. So law of cosines, you really kind of just want to use it to solve for your first side. Use law of sines to solve for your angles after that. You can use law of cosines to solve for angles, but it's much, much harder. You have to rearrange that equation a lot to be able to do that. So just use law of sines. It's a lot easier. This is the last problem I'm going to do with you guys. I am going to put up another set of problems that you have to decide what to do on. Okay, the last problem we're going to do, you guys, is problem F on here, and we're going to do problem 97. We're not going to do this other stuff. This is from the book. We kind of did our own stuff instead of the stuff from the book, though. So problem F says to use the law of cosines to solve for x in the triangle. I'm going to pause this, and I want you guys to go ahead and try it, or you need to pause this, and I want you to go ahead and try that on your own. When we come back, we're going to check it together. Okay, so you should have noticed that this is side angle side, so it should work out pretty nicely. Your equation is c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab times the cosine of c. Okay, so you should have said that x squared equals 6 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 6 times 7 times the cosine of your angle, which is 120 degrees. Go ahead and type that in your calculator if you did not already. Okay, you should have gotten that this is 127, and it's not even approximately, it's equal. So 127 equals x squared, and then you need to take the square root of both sides. So do your second button, do your square root, do your second button, and do your answer. Okay, and you should have gotten that x is approximately 11.3 if you round to the nearest tenth. Okay, the next problem that we're going to do is problem 97. It says, you now have several tools to solve for missing side lengths and angle measures. Decide which tool to use for each of the triangles below and solve for x. Decide if your answer is reasonable based on the diagram. Go ahead and pause. I want you to try these first. You are going to have a law of sines, a law of cosines, and you're going to have just a sine, cosine, or tangent. So pause this video, try all three of these, and then start it, and we'll go through them together. Okay, so you should have said the first one was law of sines. And let me switch colors so I can highlight this. So this 20 degrees goes with x. This 35 degrees, I actually want to do that in a different color. 35 degrees goes with 8.3. So you should have the sine of 20 degrees over x equals the sine of 35 degrees over 8.3. You need to multiply diagonally and then divide. So you should have 8.3 times the sine of 20 over the sine of 35 equals x, actually. So this is a lot easier. You just had to type that in your calculator. Okay, you should have gotten that your side length for x is approximately, if you round to the nearest ninth, 4.9. So you would fill this in as 4.9, and there's no units, so you don't have to do any units. The next one, you should have said that you have opposite over adjacent, which is tangent, so you should have taken the tangent of x equals opposite, which is 5, over the adjacent, which is 9. Then you have to take the tangent inverse, so x equals the tangent inverse of 5 over 9. And when you type that in, you should get x is approximately 29.1, and that's degrees. The last one is law of cosines, you guys, and I'm actually going to save that one for you guys to do for your warm-up on the next video, because I'm finishing this up during another class. So that's it. Make sure you guys do your homework and turn it in to me.